All right, let's do this. Are you recording on...
Hitting record.
Hitting record. Me. Okay, we have signal. All right, Will, one last request, okay?
Yep.
Do me a favor and make a fist and put it in front of the microphone.
Okay.
All right, and then put your face up to your fist.
All right, that's the sweet spot.
I don't want you any closer than that.
Okay.
All right? It will make my life a lot easier.
Okay.
God damn it, Will.
I had to. I'm just a child. Sometimes I'm a massive child.
Hey everybody, welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You are listening to episode 27 for the week of June 2nd, 2019. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined by massive child Will.
Dude, I'm going to be 34 on Thursday.
I always thought you were older than me for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, or at least the same age. I got 2 years on you, bro.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought that you were like 34, 35, 33, somewhere around there.
I'm 35 right now, but my birthday is a couple weeks after yours, and I will be 36.
Aha. Yeah, we have Damien's birthday coming up on the same day as me, too.
You know what we should do? We should just block off the entire month of June and just fucking party. And nobody works, nobody does nothing. Just be like, party time.
Birthday month.
Birthday month. I love it. How the
Cool,
hell
man.
are
So
you,
what's
man?
going on?
Yeah. Dude.
Clearly, we're both intrigued in each other's lives.
Yeah, well, you first.
Okay. I'm well. I'm actually really well. Work is good. I'm off on a Sunday, which is nice. It's kind of a pleasant day out there, a little breezy, a little lack of sun, but that's okay. I can live with it.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm well. What about you?
Man, I'm fucking beat. I'm exhausted.
Well, you've had a lot going on, man.
So I started working with a gentleman part-time. He runs he does a lot of things, but it's all revolving around live audio, live sound, things like that. There's a nonprofit theater in New Britain that he's general manager of, so he books the bands and the plays there, and he runs the audio and the lights for them, and then he has his own business doing live sound for all kinds of events. And it's summer, so all these local towns are starting to do their summer concerts and things like that. So while the work is part-time, when it kicks in, it tends to kick in pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing like anywhere from like 12 to 16-hour days for the past 3 days.
Oof.
There was a Relay for Life that we were at, and we set up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we went back to the theater after setting up for that. While one of the other guys stayed behind to run the sound, but that didn't wrap up until the following day.
Uh-huh.
And oh man, I've been leaving the house at like 8 o'clock and getting home at midnight for the past 3 days in a row.
Woof.
Yeah, but I would much rather be doing something like this than sitting in a cubicle.
Yeah, man. I mean, this beats a cubicle any day of the week.
It was a gorgeous day yesterday and the day before, and I was outside, like setting up speakers and wiring microphones and lights and shit. And like, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
God bless you.
Couldn't beat it, man. Couldn't beat it.
No, you can't.
So-
I was outside the other day and I got a little burnt, but it happens. I'm, porcelain white. So
dude,
it's,
I put on sunscreen 4 times on Saturday. I still got sunburned.
Yeah, dude, the sun is stronger than ever.
I gotta switch to like SPF 100.
Yeah, they say that like anything over 30, I think is like kind of a waste, or maybe it's 50 or 80. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making things up, but I know that there's a certain SPF number that anything above that, it's counted as kind of the same, but who fucking knows? I just know that I have to wear it, and I have to wear a lot of it.
Yeah. So make sure you wear your sunscreen, folks.
Yes, indeed, including after you get out of the pool.
And if you're sweating.
And if you're sweating, yes.
I just made that really gross, didn't I?
A little bit. That's okay.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading the show. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever else you can find us. Just go in your favorite podcast app. type in Will and Drew's, and you don't even have to finish the rest. It'll just auto-populate. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, that popular.
Eventually, I'll get around to just tagging it as WDGR, but that takes a little more work, and I'm fucking lazy when I have the time.
Drew's tired.
I am late tired. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram at WDGRPodcast. That's at WDGRPodcast. Will, if somebody would like to recommend a proper sunscreen SPF to you, how can they do so?
Well, you can reach me via fax or Will_gear.
Can they fax you a sunscreen?
That would be amazing, like a fax printer / 3D printer.
Can you imagine that? Like if you had like a 3D fax machine and somebody like fucking dialed up your modem, and then all of a sudden your 3D printer fax machine just starts making sunscreen.
Is it bad that I'm on Amazon looking at fax machines?
Yes.
Okay.
There should be a pop-up that says when you go to purchase this, Amazon should stop you and say, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
Or just like an error 404, like
yeah, error 404, fax not found.
Yeah, yeah. Fucking whole thing just collapses.
Oh god. You can follow me at ScionStorm on Twitter and Instagram too. Will, what have you been playing, bro?
Skyrim.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh is right.
Let's talk about that.
The reason why I loaded this up is because on the last episode we spoke about game locations, and I mentioned a place called Blackreach, and after speaking about that on the show, I was determined to go back there, and I also wanted to get ready to go back there for your visit, which unfortunately we did have to cancel, but we're going to hang out soon, folks, so don't worry.
Yep.
But yeah, I wanted to be there so I could show it to you. And I found myself playing the game for quite some time, and I had a blast with it. And I think there's been a yearning to play this game for a while. I was playing, I want to say about a year ago, like pretty consistently. And I was doing one of the DLCs, and then, yeah, just after the episode, man, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to get to Blackreach. It took me a while. But man, it just felt like such a cool journey, just like delving back into the game and back into the world of Skyrim, and that game is very, very special to me.
So did you pick up from a previous save, or did you just start from scratch?
Previous save. I went back, and it took me a minute to kind of, reacquaint myself with the controls and where I was in the game, because most people who have played that game know that there's many quest lines and there's many miscellaneous tasks, and there's so much that you end up kind of opening that if you kind of put that game down for a while, it's hard to go back and be like, all right, what was I doing again? You kind of just have to, do it. You have to throw yourself in and be like, all right, I don't really remember what I was doing, but that's okay. I'm just going to start with like this quest and just kind of figure it out. So I jumped on my horse, and I had to Google where Blackreach was and kind of how to get there. And I just, got on my trusty steed and just started, mowing around, and just trying to find it. Eventually found it. It took me a while to access it too, because I forgot you had to get some other kind of like key or whatever, or some device to actually open up the entry to get in there. But it was worth it, man. I had such a blast. I want to start playing, I think, on the side now with Sekiro, so that way I don't get too burnt out on frustration.
Now, you were playing this on PlayStation 4, right?
Yeah, I'm playing the Skyrim Remastered, which came out in 2017, I think. Okay.
Have you given any thought to picking this up on the Switch?
No. When they announced it, it was kind of like the same feelings I get when they announce like just random games like on the Switch that have already been out. Which is kind of like there isn't really an incentive for me to buy a game that I already have or a game that's been out on the Switch.
Yeah.
I'd rather buy Switch exclusives, at this point.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I mean, I can definitely understand that. I kind of the same way with my systems. I try to buy the exclusives, and then the multi-platform ones, I just kind of make a decision, I think, on where I want to be with that, and that tends to fall on the Xbox side. But I mean, there are certain games though for me that are like identifiably Switch. Skyrim's not one of them.
No, it's just like, I feel like that game, the scope of it is so epic and special that, like, why would you want to play that on such a small format?
Right.
Again, somebody who's commuting, on the train in Boston or New York, and they have like a 45-minute commute or something, maybe that's perfect for them. But for somebody like you and I that are, kind of suburban, I don't know why I want to say monkeys. Maybe it's too much Joe Rogan, but
At least you didn't call me a suburban wife.
Oh yeah, no, God no. I mean, you're not baking brownies today. Yeah,
I just thought that's where you were going with that.
Yeah, there's no Duncan Hines in your household.
No,
there could be.
We make our brownies from scratch, sir.
Good.
Or we buy them at Stop and Shop, pre-made.
There you go. But yeah, it's a fantastic game, man. Anybody who has not played it that's listening to this show, please do yourself a favor and buy this game. I mean, there's so many different versions of it now, and I'm sure it's kind of cheap. But god damn, is that game good? And I don't care about like some of the bugs and some of the controversy around how some of the voice actors were doing the same voice for multiple characters, because that was one of the complaints when that game came out. Like, no one gives a shit at this point, because everybody knows that that's what makes Skyrim so special, is that there are certain characters that, yes, they have the exact same voice, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the world and getting lost and really seeing how large it really is. Because there's a couple dungeons I had to dive through to get to Blackreach, and like, they're just massive, man. Like, just thinking about like whoever was creating these dungeons deserve a lot of praise.
I wonder if they just had like 100 people and they just hired one person to do each dungeon.
I have no idea, man. I imagine an army of people were working on this game.
Yeah, something of that scale, you have to have just huge teams. It's just not possible any other way.
Yeah, like, and they must have had like a dungeon team. Like maybe a guy or like a team of like, say, 15, 20 people that were exclusively working on dungeons only.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. No doubt about that.
And that's one of the best parts about that game is like, you'll be running around in just some random area, and then you discover a new hideout or a new dungeon, and you just can't help. You get this like wonderful, like giddy feeling of like, oh my God, like I just discovered this place, and it's like blah, blah, blah cavern or blah, blah, blah hideout. And you just can't help but just get sucked in, and you want to explore, and you're just like, man, I'm on this mission, but I just want to see what's in here. And sometimes you think it's just going to be a quick 3 to 5 minute like visit, and it ends up being like a 30-minute dungeon crawl, and then you discover like a new shout that you get to learn, or you discover kind of like this mini boss thing, and it's epic, man. I love that game.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's something that you've gotten a lot from,
yes,
both emotionally and as a gamer, enjoyment wise, Yeah,
and it's still weird for me to think about how much I like that game, because I'm not a big AAA title game, and that game is extremely popular. And it was one of the few AAA games that I really, really love, and that's such a rare thing for me.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So, I haven't had a ton of time to do much gaming, but our last recording session was Monday last week, right? So that puts us about the 27th, I think, of May. We're recording on Sunday, June 2nd today. So let's see here. Sometime between Tuesday and Wednesday, I don't remember when I started doing this, but I actually started messing around with my my RetroPie.
Oh, nice.
And I just I was browsing on Reddit, and I read a post. Somebody was asking a question about something, and they said that you can store your ROMs on like a network attached storage, like a server or a hard drive connected to your router or whatever, and use the RetroPie to connect to that rather than copying all the ROMs onto the SD card. And one of the things that has always bugged me about emulation is like with sometimes I'll be messing around with the settings on the RetroPie, trying to do this or do that. I fuck it up. Now I gotta wipe everything, and when I wipe everything, I lose any game saves that I might have. This kind of eliminates that from happening.
That's good.
And then if I want to play it on my computer, I could also play it on the computer, and I'd have that game saved. So I'm basically making like a cloud save in my home. I can't get it outside the network, but it's essentially a cloud save.
Yeah.
So I'm like all about that. So I fired it up, and it took me a while to kind of tinker with it and get everything where I wanted it, but I finally got it working. And I think it was Wednesday night. I sat down and I was playing Mario 2. And I fucking suck at that game.
Those games are fucking hard, man. Like it's not just Mario 2, like any of those older platformers, when you go back, even if it's just like and we spoke about this before, like the miniature SNES, if you load that thing up after not playing those games in years, like you're going to get beaten.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be like, what the fuck? Like I remember being like really good at these games, and it just shows like how much games have evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like comparatively, games nowadays kind of hold your hand a little
Very
too
much so.
But there's a difference too, because, and this is something that I think we forget, but like a lot of these older games were very reliant on users reading the instruction manual.
Yes.
And nowadays, the instruction manual isn't even included. It started getting phased out probably around the Xbox era when they started doing more tutorials in games. The original Xbox, PlayStation 2, around that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as we've gone further and further away from that era, like just now they don't even bother including a piece of paper in there half the time, or if it is some kind of like epilepsy warning or something of that nature.
Yeah.
So looking back on these older games, and like if you don't have a copy of the manual, like I don't have. I have a real copy of Super Mario Brothers 2, but I don't have the box and the manual that came with it. So unless I go online and look it up, I'm trying to figure it out on my own. And for that type of game, it's pretty self-explanatory. But then you look at a game like Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda. I mean, there's a lot to that, and I'm fairly certain. I've never seen the manual myself, but from what I can recall reading about, like there's a map in the instruction book that gives you generalization of where everything is.
Yep.
So when they're telling you to go to the castle, I'm like, where the fuck is the castle?
Right.
And that's
no idea.
And that's why I've never really, I think, gotten into that game. It's just very, very interesting looking back on that kind of thing. For me, it just you forget like how much goes into the full package.
Yes. And I find it hard, man, like revisiting some of those games. I mean, they're very nostalgic, and it reminds you of your childhood. But sometimes I almost just like don't want to do it and or can't do it in terms of like playing some of those games. Like we tried, I think it was Donkey Kong Country, whatever, the one that's on like the SNES Mini.
I think both of them are.
I don't know, maybe it's just because I was so bad at it, or I just hadn't played it in so long that I just didn't want to play it, but I wanted to kind of just, not rage quit, but I just didn't want to play it. I was just like, where's Zelda, or where's Street Fighter 2? Like, I don't know. I think that when you get older, you get picky about the games that you do want to revisit from that time period. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm more apt to pick up and revisit something that I know I can just dominate.
Yeah, or that you have a specific memory of. Like, I'm not going to go and play Donkey Kong Country, for the Super Nintendo if that's just what was popular back then. I'd rather play something that I actually played then, now. Because I would just feel that much more nostalgic about it. It's kind of like how I referenced Shadows of the Empire for 64.
Right.
Like, that's a game that I want to go back and play, and I know I'm going to have fun with it.
I mean, I definitely get what you're saying, and I agree with that for the most part. But there are times where I personally find a game that, I want to be able to put a notch on my belt that says I've beaten all of the Super Mario Brothers games. Like, sure. That is a long-term goal of mine, or
bucket list.
Yeah, and those are games that I don't really have like that nostalgia with, because I didn't have a Nintendo when I was younger. I didn't get it until I was an adult. I certainly played those games at other people's houses, but I never had the time to devote to it like a lot of people did, where hey, this is the only game I own, I'm going to beat the shit out of it,
Uh-huh.
So, but I mean, like, I look at my shelves and there's like all these games that I want to play. And when I say I want to play them, I don't mean like just pop it in and play it. Like, I want to thoroughly enjoy the entirety of the game.
Yes.
And it is a very steep hurdle to climb at some cases.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's about it for me.
Well, hey, you know, like I said, you've been busy. You'll delve back into something soon.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. There's some cool shit on the horizon that I'm looking forward to getting my hands on eventually, and a couple of them we're actually going to talk about later in the show. There's something else too that I wanted to play. Can't even think. Anyway,
was it a Plague Tale?
No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't that. I mean, that looks interesting, but it didn't jump out at me as something I needed to play.
Fair.
Have you gotten it?
No, not yet.
No.
I thought about it today. I actually downloaded the PS4 app, like the store app. I haven't had it on my phone in a while. I actually deleted it because I didn't want to like have the temptation of buying more games.
That's a good reason to delete it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I re-downloaded it today, and just because I haven't been on the store in a while, and I just wanted to check out some of the sales. You know, see if there's anything good on there. And I haven't checked for a Plague Tale yet to see what the price is, but I might do it soon. I'm happy with what I have, but I'm kind of curious about that game still. So if it's on a good price, I might scoop it up. We'll see.
It's not, I don't think it's going to be on a good price for about 2 months.
Probably not.
You know, I would say. So you missed Memorial Day sales, 4th of July.
Yeah,
I'll bet you. I bet you could scoop it up for $40 if you wait till the 4th of July.
I mean, they have some great specials right now. You know, anyone that has a PS4, please check out the store because I think they're doing like up to 80% off for PS Plus members.
Sony is they kill it with their sales.
They do.
They really do. Like I've always been impressed with their sales, and especially like the flash sales. If you're a patient gamer and you don't mind waiting to buy stuff, you can get some really good prices.
Indeed.
And E3 is right around the corner too. So don't forget that. There's going to be a bunch of sales for that. I think that's next week.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. Like, I mean, not only has this year been flying by and it's already like, you know, halfway through the year practically. It's nuts that E3 is already here. And I think that for me personally, I overlooked it because I haven't been going on gaming websites like really at all, like in a while. I don't know why. I think I just stopped going on IGN, like, I don't know, probably like a year ago. And after that, I just kind of, I don't know, I just rely on like Twitter and Instagram for like gaming news now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is coming up, isn't it? It's always like the beginning of June.
Yeah. I think it's going to be the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Let me look it up real quick. Is there I know we didn't even discuss this, but is there anything that you want to see out of E3?
It's weird because, I mean, from what I understand, we had a couple people say that that Sony's not going to be there.
Yeah. Sony, I think Sony said they would not. It's the 11th through the 13th, Tuesday through Thursday.
Okay.
So maybe we can actually, so this episode is going to drop on the 4th. We could actually do an E3 episode for next week.
Yeah, that'll be perfect, actually.
Cool. I'm going to note that in our little note thing. And then, let's move on. Inside baseball.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know if I am really looking forward to anything per se. I think I want to see more from for Ghost of Tsushima, or Tsushima. I'd like to see more for Bayonetta 3. What else do I want to see? A little bit more about Astral Chain, which is a new Platinum Games.
Oh
theme.
Yeah, I remember you showed me some videos of that. Well, maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah,
it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. You know, it's a Switch game, I believe, so it's another good title coming up, or at least it looks good.
I am so close to a Switch.
And then good. I'm glad you are, because I was about to sell you mine.
I have. $295 in Best Buy bucks.
Beautiful.
Although 10 of that expires in July, they issued me some kind of a bonus for using their card, but I can't like bank it for some reason. It's kind of stupid. But yeah, I'm close. I'm hoping actually at E3, Nintendo makes some sort of an announcement whether or not they're going to do a revision of the system, because that's going to influence when I buy that system. if they're coming out with a revision later this year, I'm going to wait for it, and I'll just blow that $10 on something else.
Yeah. But I would say besides that, maybe like FF7, maybe something to do with the PS5. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because like a lot of the games I look forward to are generally Sony-based games.
Right.
So if they're not going to be there, then I don't know. I mean, maybe that's why some of these things are starting to come out earlier, like before E3, like new Death Stranding trailer, which we're going to mention a little bit later. That came out, and like there's certain things that I don't know if we're going to see at E3 because they're more Sony based, from what I understand. So
let's see here. I don't know why that Google link was saying it was the 11th through the 13th, because I'm looking here. I found GamesRadar.com is saying here are all the upcoming press conferences and things like that. So EA Play starts June 7th through the 9th. I guess they're doing their own thing. I don't believe they're going to be directly tied in with E3, but it's the same weekend. So they got a whole bunch of stuff, including Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Apex Legends, Battlefield 5, FIFA 20, Madden NFL 20. Jesus Christ, there's been 20 Maddens. All right, so there's that. Xbox's E3 briefing is Sunday, June 9th at 1 p.m. So that's cool. Bethesda has theirs Sunday. Actually, it's going to be Monday, technically, I guess.
Let me just interject real quick while you said Bethesda. I hope to see something about the new Elder Scrolls game.
So, as you could probably tell by the image above, Elder Scrolls is going to feature in some way, although it's already been confirmed there's no Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield presence this year. What? I don't know what that means. So, it sounds like there's going to be something, but maybe not what you want. So that's... I'm so confused as whether this is Sunday or... Is this site British? This might be a British site, which is kind of throwing me off. Because they have their times, like, all fucking weird. So, anyway. Yeah. Ubisoft is on Monday. There's a PC show on Monday. Square Enix is on Monday. Devolver. Nintendo's on Tuesday. And then Sony has no presence, yeah. So...
Yeah, I just don't know, man. I mean, I think I've mentioned everything I want to see. I can't think of anything else. What about you?
Doom Eternal.
Oh, yeah.
Doom Eternal.
Yeah, that should come as no surprise for everybody that knows Drew well enough now.
Give me that game directly into my veins.
Dude, before we started the show, and I was kind of prepping for some of the topics, I actually watched a gameplay reveal of Doom Eternal, and my God, does it look fun.
That's the key right there. That game is fucking fun.
It just looks fun. I mean, not only is it like, you would imagine that Doom would be a terrifying game, and in some ways it kind of is, but it's also like they've just added that arcadish funness to it as well, which is what makes those games so masterful.
Well, like if you play the first couple Dooms, Doom 1, Doom 2, Final Doom, there's a lot of running around, exploring these maps. You're sent back and forth across the place to look for keys so you can open up doors. So there's a lot of exploration involved. And then you come across, a set of monsters, and it's a very visceral fight, and there's not a lot of cover. So you're moving constantly. Like you're never still. Like being still is death in those games. So you're moving, you're strafing back and forth, you're circling these guys, you're trying to get them to shoot each other, or whatever the case is, but you're constantly in motion. And then maybe you run in, around a corner and there's a monster there, and it's like, he jumps out at you, and then you backpedal. And those games, while you may get, a couple scares here and there, I never found them truly scary. It's more adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's more of an adrenaline rush. Doom 3 was when they went down the survival horror path.
Right.
And I use that term a little loosely, but they were going more for like darkness, scares, things of that nature. You go into a room, you have no idea what's there, and all of a sudden you're getting assaulted. And that they had the whole flashlight mechanic too, where like you couldn't hold a gun and the flashlight at the same time, and then there were patches that fixed that, blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
I think that's why I've always been so curious to play that game either with you or we each play it separately, Doom 3. because I want to understand why they went down that road and really explore that decision.
I think it was the first time that they felt they had the technology to really truly do a story with Doom.
Yep.
You know, because there were like not cutscenes, but in-game story things that were going on. They were telling a narrative where Doom 1, Doom 2, Final Doom, the narrative was told in text, and it was really very, very basic.
Yeah, because when your average gamer thinks of Doom, they're thinking Doom guy, BFG, shoot shit, blood, and that's about it.
Yep. And Doom 3 doesn't really fall into that as much as any of the other games.
Mm-hmm.
Including the new ones.
Yeah.
So, but man, Doom 2016 is just, man, it is incredible. And
why do I need to play this game?
You would be doing yourself a disservice if you don't.
Okay.
I don't. It is. Have you ever seen the newest Rambo? Film?
Oh yeah.
That came out like mid 2000s.
Yeah, it was fucking amazing.
How did you feel walking out of the theater?
Like an absolute badass.
Right.
And I wanted to put a bandana on, dude.
Yeah, and like you want to like just go out into the world and like rip and tear.
Yep. So that's Doom 2016.
That's Doom 2016 in video game form, where all those feelings that you had walking out of Rambo, where, okay, now you're in the real world and you can't really be Rambo because you'll get arrested and or killed. Like, yeah. And that's just not okay. That's not who we are. But you could do that in a video game. It's okay to do that in a video game. And you should do it in a video game and not in real life. Well, now you can go out there and fucking destroy demons and just rip and tear through them. And I know I'm using that slogan, but it's like the best description of the game I can think of. You just, oh man, I don't know. And like there's this beautiful progression of weaponry and abilities. Like they added like this nice little RPG element to it, so that as you go through the game and you find all these different secrets, you unlock they're not really powers, but like when you first start out, when you melee people, it's not much more than just a glorified animation, but then that starts giving you health and it starts giving you armor, and then that becomes your primary way of staying alive. So you're constantly being forced to go forward, attack. And it embodies this sense where, like, I think in the first few Doom games, especially in Doom 3, like you're trapped in a room with the monsters and you have to fight your way out. In Doom 2016, the monsters are trapped in the room with you.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of terrifying.
It's so much fun. And like I can't believe I haven't popped it into my Xbox One X yet and fired it up, because it is a 4K compatible game. I need to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I think the funny thing about Doom is, like, when I was watching some of the Doom Eternal gameplay, I was thinking, man, like I feel like a lot of people overlook the fact that the settings in space, right? And you're kind of fighting off like an evil sort of Event Horizon kind of situation, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more satanic cult. You spend some time on Mars. You spend some time on the moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, and then you go into hell, like actually hell, and you spend some time there too. And it kind of sends you all over the place. But that pretty much follows, Doom 1 and 2. Or Doom 2 is hell on Earth. So like, Doom 1 takes place in Phobos and Deimos, the moons of Mars. Doom 2 takes place on Earth, and it's about the aliens invading Earth, and yeah. So it's kind of a kind of all over the place, but very much a science fiction atmosphere. I feel like Doom is more science fiction, less horror.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, what you said about Doom 3, that might be the only game that they kind of put a little bit of that horror touch in there.
Yeah, it tends to be more of a horror feel to me. Um, Man,
Which I
it's
think is
just
kind of cool because
it's
I think what
fine.
I was leading up to there is that a lot of people, it seems, forget like the core environment that you're in Doom, which is like straight up fucking evil.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people don't think about that. They're just like, "Oh yeah, Doom's great, man. Just shoot a bunch of shit and blah blah blah." It's like, yeah, but
Well,
you're also fighting off like fucking just satanic shit.
yeah, I mean one of the benefits and the weaknesses of the game is the fact that you're not excuse me, you're not fighting other humans. Like you're fighting creatures. And in the first couple games, those creatures were limited by, pixels. So they have a bit of a cartoonish look to them.
Yeah.
They're iconic looking. Absolutely iconic. But I mean, do you really find that Cat is scary? Not really.
Are those the floating head things?
Yeah, with the one eye.
Yeah, I mean, if I woke up to that at 4 o'clock in the morning, I mean, I'd probably die from like a heart attack. But
yeah, but I mean, like in Doom 1, like you're I think you're more scared by the fact that there's 3 or 4 floating head things coming flying at you, throwing fireballs, and less scared by the actual appearance.
Sure.
When you look at Doom 2016, those things are fucking scary looking. Like that's like out of a horror movie, and that's that's down to graphics and the times.
Yep.
They couldn't do that back then. Now they can.
No.
So they did that in Doom 3, and they made everything super scary, and they slowed the pace of the game down and really relied on darkness and things like that. And it's great. It's different. And I think they needed to do that, But in 2016, they went back to the roots. And I think it worked out for the better. I think that was my favorite game that year, and it's one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, well, I think you sold me on it, man. It's been on my radar, on and off for a while, and I don't know what kind of compelled me to revisit the idea of me buying this game and playing it, but I think it's going to be back on my radar, man. Probably high up there, so we'll see what kind of special it's on. Maybe I can grab it for like $5 or $10. Who knows?
It's certainly possible. I mean, it's been on sale before. It's an older game, so you should be able to find it on the cheap. The nice thing about it is you have distinct levels, so you can sit down for an evening and maybe you only have an hour. Well, you could probably get through a level in an hour, or pretty damn close. And then you put it down.
Yeah, I like that.
But you won't be able to. Like, you'll want to keep playing. Trust me.
Yeah, I think Doom and a lot of games like that, they have they have kind of like an addictive quality to them because of the way that the game is structured, the way that it's kind of a simple format. I mean, you really are at the end of the day just running around unrealistically shooting shit. So it creates that desire to just kind of do something that's a little bit less realistic and just more about fun.
Now, on the topic of Doom 2, you had mentioned in our show notes that we wanted to talk a little bit about John Romero's Doom mod. And I remember reading about it when it was announced, but I had no idea that it had actually come out this past week.
Yeah,
I can't wait to play it.
I had no idea. Excuse me. I just found it on Kotaku when I was browsing for topics, and I was like, oh, let me link this in there. And I didn't read too much about it, but from what I understand, it's just some kind of mod that he's recently created. And then I came across that video that I linked to, and I learned a little bit about Mr. Romero, the godfather of Doom himself.
Yeah. I haven't had an opportunity to watch the video you sent me yet, but his level design is legendary. I think when people think of John Romero, you have John Carmack and John Romero, the founders of id Software.
Yes.
And Carmack was always the tech guy. Romero was the art guy. Or at least I think that's kind of how it's perceived, right?
Yes.
And together, like, those guys just made something amazing. And I cannot wait to go and play a 2006 or 2019. I don't know why I said 2016. 2019 Doom 1. from the godfather of the fucking game itself, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, that duo certainly is something special. And, just watching that video, you get to see some flashback photos of like when they were younger, at like a crazy old computer with like a crazy old Pepsi can in the background. It's really cool seeing that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that the fact that, this mod is out, it really kind of represents and reminds gamers that some of these older guys are still around and they still care. It's not like they made a bunch of games and they're like sitting on their cash and just like, oh, fuck video games. Like I made my money. Like these guys are true gamers. And I learned a lot about, even just like, I guess, John Carmack was like a Nine Inch Nails fan.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
They did some of the soundtrack for Quake, I guess.
The music in Quake is so iconic on so many levels, and Nine Inch Nails has a huge part of that, but it was also like one of the first games that I remember playing where it had CD audio. So you're firing up, like, imagine coming from Doom 2, where you have like really awesome, intricate, MIDI songs. Everything was MIDI, chiptune kind of thing, whatever, right? And then you pop in Quake 1, and it looks like nothing you've ever seen, and it sounds like nothing you've ever seen. And fucking Nine Inch Nails is just making the creepiest sounds you've ever heard.
Yeah, they're really good at that kind of stuff.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
What a perfect band to, create sounds for some of those games.
So I'm on Romero's site now looking at the download for Sigil. And you can download it for free. And it's a small file, like 3.1 megabytes. Or if you'd like, you can pay for it $6.66. And it comes with a soundtrack by Buckethead.
Wow.
And that's really tempting because it's fucking Buckethead.
Yeah.
He is just a beast of a guitarist.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is.
I'm looking at, they actually had like a box that they released for this too. Wow, Megawad Beast box. Holy crap, this comes with a 16 gigabyte, 3.5-inch floppy disk themed USB stick.
Wow.
2-disc booklet-styled case includes the free Megawatt data, full soundtrack by Buckethead, behind-the-scenes information on the original game, 8x10 art print signed by the illustrator, a Sigil-themed coin. This is really cool.
God, that just mentioning floppy disk reminds me of like, being in the high school library.
Oh, man.
With like a floppy disk and having to fucking save shit.
My first time playing any kind of LAN game was in my graphic arts class. We stayed after school and installed Team Fortress Classic on like 8 computers in the lab. It was awesome, and the teacher was totally cool with it too. He just said like, "Listen, guys, you can do this, but you have to uninstall the game when you're done."
yeah, but get that shit off.
Yeah, well, he was a gamer too. Like he was into like Dungeons and Dragons and shit. He was a real cool guy. So, anyway, I can't wait to play that.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be something special.
Will, we still have not hit the mailbag. We are 43 minutes in.
Yeah, let's hit the mailbag now. I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, shit, I better alert him.
Yeah, no, I've been watching it, but, like, I don't know. The conversation's just going in places, man.
Yeah, it happens.
At Saikoro says, what are our thoughts on Sony not being at E3? Well, we kind of dipped our toes in that already. What do you official thoughts from Will?
Sure. I mean, disappointment, overall. I think I mentioned this on an older episode. I think that we caught wind of this potentially earlier. I don't know. I just remember mentioning something about this. But anyway, yeah, I'm disappointed. I mean, I love Sony. I'm not going to lie. I am more of a Sony fanboy. I love that. I love everything that PlayStation has pretty much ever done, and that is my go-to console. So, the fact that they're not going to be there, it's a bummer, but maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe they're hard at work. That's respectable as well. Maybe they feel like they don't need to come this year because they're going to appear at different game shows or just release stuff throughout the year. I'm not concerned. I think it's just more of a bummer. And that's kind of it. I think that's kind of where I stand on it. I think it's a great question, but what else can you really say? It's just, you got to move on from it. And unless there's some kind of article that comes out explaining why, then I'll live with it. It's not the end of the world.
Mm.
I'm concerned about certain games, and I think that those games are, well in development, and they're moving right along on track, so I'm not really concerned about too much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think E3 is quite as important as it used to be.
It's not game breaking.
It really isn't. There's a lot of like Nintendo, for example. They do Nintendo Directs all the time, and that tends to be all these little sprinkles of game breaking news throughout the year. So for them, E3 isn't really necessary, but they're going to be there. I think if Sony were to start doing something similar, as long as they can capture the vibe and excitement of the Nintendo Directs, I think it would be okay for them to start skipping E3 on a regular basis. But I mean, if you don't really have anything to announce, like anything major, or maybe you're saving it for something else that's special, it's fine, whatever. There's so much going on and so many other publishers and developers and things of that nature that are going to be there. Let them have their time in the spotlight. I think it's good for the industry if maybe somebody else fills in the gap. Maybe if there's somebody else is coming out with a new console, maybe they have a press conference. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Let Sony get out of the way and let these other people have their spot. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's whatever, man. I mean, gaming news comes out every year, throughout the year.
Every day.
Every day, basically. And, you get those stagnant moments, on gaming sites and stuff, but it is what it is, Yep. You're not going to have game-breaking stuff coming out every day. I mean, it took forever for Death Stranding, a real trailer to come out and a release date, and we just got that. We're going to touch on that in a second.
Yeah. At Joe Donut says, I've been pushing through Days Gone for the last few weeks out of complete curiosity. I hated it for the first several hours, but once I met one of the more interesting factions, the story started to pick up, and even the two shitty main characters started to become more interesting. It's not an amazing game now by any stretch, but it improved enough that I want to see it through. Have you ever pushed through a, quote, bad game to eventually find something worthwhile hours into it? If so, what games?
This is a really good question. And he's got a bonus question there, too. Why isn't editor a major role in video games?
Let's answer that real quick, because I think that's going to be an easy one. Like, when he means editor, are we talking video editor? Like, are we talking like script editor? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure there.
But I would think that there is some sort of an editor involved in the writing process and the producing process, and it should be a major role if it's not.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying there is like, who perhaps is in charge of editing, video games in terms of how well this thing plays, and maybe just like really combing through it. I would imagine that's what you're asking there, Joe. I could be totally wrong, but I don't know. Does this kind of fall into like games just getting pushed out too quickly before they're done? I don't know, or maybe the game's just bad. I don't have a lot to say about it. I mean, Days Gone is like the literal polar opposite of what I find intriguing in games because it's zombie type stuff.
Right.
I mean, I did watch a video of, I think I mentioned this again on another episode, but I remember watching a video of a guy running away from like an absolute swarm of zombies. And it was actually kind of entertaining because there was probably like 80 of them following him in like this open world area. I think it was like a field or some shit. And he kept like using all of his resources, like grenades and like guns and more grenades and different smoke bombs and whatever. And eventually he hoards off all of them. Mm-hmm. And it was actually, like I said, very entertaining to watch and very intense, but it's just not for me. The game looked kind of interesting when it first kind of debuted and they teased it. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that one.
I'm literally looking at my shelves right now trying to see if there's a game that I remember disliking at first and sticking with it. I'm coming up blank.
And I'm thinking about that part of the question as well. I don't know if I can really think of anything that I pushed through. Maybe Mission Impossible for Nintendo 64. I mean, that game was awful. But I wanted to like it, so I did push through that, and I finished it, and it got a little bit better at times, but god damn, is that game bad. I mean, that's one that comes to memory. I mean, I'm sure there might be a few others, but it's especially not recently. I don't think there's anything that I've really pushed through just to see if it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way Anthem for me, because I keep revisiting it every time it's patched and keep hoping that something good comes from it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I haven't had a chance to spend any time with the new patch really, but you know, there's a lot of promises on the horizon. You know, they had a live stream during the week and talked about their, you know, upcoming plans and stuff, and haven't really addressed, I think, a lot of the major complaints. They just kind of keep ignoring them.
Sure.
And even if, like, at some point, I just wish they would say, hey, guys, what you want is not what we want. Or what you want is not something we can fix. Either
Right.
or. Like, don't just ignore it. Like, address it. And I think if you're honest about it, people will be more accepting.
Sure.
But just peeking at the list of titles here. I mean, I know there's especially when I was younger, there are games that are objectively bad, you know, that I played because I didn't have a choice.
Right, right. That was the game that you had to play, you know?
I really enjoy a lot of the Star Trek games, and they are typically critically garbage.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of a Star Wars or a Star Trek game that's been good.
Yeah, like I'm looking at my shelf now, and like I have like Star Trek Starfleet Command on the Super Nintendo. Like, it's not good, but I fucking love that game. I love ship combat, and Star Trek is like I'm more of a Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan. I am the guy who has like the Star Trek technical manuals, the encyclopedia. I've bought, you know, Next Generation on Blu-ray and on DVD. I've seen every episode of almost every series at least twice. You know, that, like, I'm a super fan, right? And I try to play and own every Star Trek game that I possibly can. And it is a struggle. But at the end of the day, I'm in my favorite show with my favorite ships, doing my thing in a video game.
And you know what? That's enough, man. I mean, that kind of, you know, when you were mentioning all of that stuff, it reminds me of that game, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace for PlayStation 1.
Yep.
And that game was kind of notoriously bad. But
yeah.
At the same time, there were some really good parts about it. And you're in that world. And when that movie came out, everybody loved it. Everybody hates it now, but everybody loved it when the movie came out.
Yeah.
And that game was fucking pretty good. Like, the sounds were great. The gameplay was all right. It was a very strange, almost like bird's eye perspective. But some of those games are just, I don't know, like they suck, but like at the same time, you kind of just want to love them. And I think that's probably what was going through Joe's mind potentially with Days Gone. I mean, I know he said he played it out of complete curiosity, but maybe there was a part of him that wanted to enjoy some of it because the premise isn't terrible.
Yeah. I mean, from the reviews that I was reading on the game, everything was basically, hey, this game is okay. Like, there's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's just not particularly innovative or exciting or anything that you haven't already played.
Yeah.
Like, you can get a better experience on the same type of game with another game.
Yeah.
So I guess it can't all be, you know, can't all be 10s.
No, it certainly can't.
At Jefferson James asks, what are your thoughts on fanboys and their impact on the very things they obsess over? For instance, the console wars, the Marvel movies, the novel series, etc.
This is a good question, but also kind of tough because when I think of fanboys, in terms of the impact of the things they obsess over, I mean, it's hard for me to kind of like clarify that. Like, I feel like when it comes to console wars, I mean, I think what it is I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. When somebody does mention, oh, like, you know, fuck Xbox, like Sony's like the best, like those kind of fanboys, like I just kind of ignore it. I'm just like, all right, you know, like clearly you like Sony or clearly you like Xbox or whatever it is, whatever console they're rooting for. It is what it is. But like in terms of the impact that it has, I don't know if it has an impact on me. I don't know if it really has an impact on gaming. I don't know. I haven't really thought about this one enough, and I think that's why the question is potentially that good.
Well, I mean, I think I don't think the term fanboy or console wars even has the same impact that it did 10 years ago. Because there's so much crossover, and there's so many games that are being developed for both systems. So a lot of AAA titles you could play on, I said both systems, I really meant all three. You can play them on anything. Skyrim is a perfect example. How many fucking systems can you play Skyrim on?
Oh God, a lot.
And it's
PC,
been
console.
Yeah, and how many consoles? Because that came out last generation, right? So it's on 2 generations of consoles. It's been remastered. It just came out on Switch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's memes on the internet where it's like, okay, what can Skyrim be on now? And it's like, oh, here it is on my car's dashboard. Here it is on my cell phone. Here it is on my fax machine. All this crazy shit. So when they start looking at like Sony, for example, who's been knocking it out of the park with their exclusives, it really, I think, is almost a revitalization of the console wars, but not to the same extent, because you don't have like these wildly different experiences. I think back to the Genesis, and like you look at games like, just off the top of my head, Flashback to Quest for Identity. You play it on the Genesis, you play it on the Super Nintendo, and while the levels are the same and the game is at its core the same, the experiences are completely different because the graphics are different, the music is different, the sounds are different. You play that same game on the Xbox or the PlayStation now, Xbox One or the PS4, it's going to be identical. It's just the community that surrounds it.
Yeah, I think you've helped shape my new answer for Tom's question here in a big way. And I think, mentioning this idea, or not even the idea, the reality that a lot of games now are being released on, multiple platforms so many times, and re-releases and remasters, whatever. Everything is usually, there's, I think, less exclusives. There's still a lot, right? But there's still, in some ways, potentially less. I don't know the stats on that. But either way, what you said about Skyrim, I think, is very relevant to how games are re-released and released in general. And because they're on multi-platforms most of the time, I think that it squashes a lot of that fanboyism, and you only get that when it comes to titles that are exclusively console-based. So I think overall, the impact is probably less on the community of games and the culture and the subject of video games in general. I think it's less of an impact because of the way that games are released.
As far as I'm concerned, I think, like, overall, yes, I think there is less of an impact, but I think that there should be more of a console war, because I think innovation or having that competition breeds innovation and breeds...
It does.
So the fact that Sony has so many great exclusive games right now, and Microsoft is struggling to get them, and the fact that, like, I remember reading something, Microsoft announced they're going to have like 20 exclusives, and that's awesome. Like, I think that they need to focus on exclusives on the Xbox, but now they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because they're doing this thing where it's like Xbox and PC, and like, they're not the same.
No, I know.
They're just not the same. And like, I'm not really a PC gamer. I dip my toes in the water every now and then, but I prefer to play on consoles. So like, I want to be able to say, hey man, I can get this on the Xbox. Nobody else can get this but on the Xbox. Don't make it on computer, because then you're going to get people that'll be like, well, why would I buy an Xbox when I could play it on my computer? And then Xbox is going to cease to exist.
Yeah, you make a very valid point there. I do like the fact that there is exclusive, titles that are out there for specific systems, because it does create that innovation and competition within consoles, and that's very important. And it is nice to kind of have that moment where you're like, no man, like, Dragon's Crown Pro is only Sony. Like, you can only get it on this. And like, it's not to be like, hey, fuck you, Xbox. It's just like, it's kind of cool to have something that you own, and it's for a console that you own, and it convinces maybe your friends to get another console or to try a game that's on a different console. Like, it's nice to kind of have that almost banter in a way, but it's like a cool banter.
Yeah, I do miss that, like, to some extent. You know, it's not always perfect, but I don't know. There's just something about it, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's important, but I think overall the impact is a little bit less, just based on I guess my experience. So
Yeah,
hopefully that answers that question.
yeah, for the most part, I think. So that about does it for the mailbag. Before we wrap up the show, as we are at the 1 hour mark now, let's just talk briefly about Death Stranding. The trailer dropped during the week. What a weird fucking game, bro.
Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, I think we know a little bit more now, but the gameplay doesn't really truly reveal more. I think it just shows more gameplay. It shows a little bit more of like perhaps what this game is really delving into in terms of subject matter. But one of the reasons why I was able to understand what this game is about in a larger way was really just because of following Hideo Kojima on Twitter and Instagram, because he put out a post 3 days ago with kind of like a little announcement of what this game is about, and maybe I'll link it in the Discord because I don't want to read it out loud because it's too long. It's kind of like a big paragraph and we don't have time. But he does explain for the most part what this game is about, and I will say it's very compelling. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'll link it to you, Drew.
Yeah.
And like I said, to Discord. But yeah, I mean, overall, if you watch this video, if you've played Metal Gear Solid 4 or 5, you're going to see that Kojima still hasn't gotten away from even just simple character movement. It's very, very similar to those two games. It's still kind of like, I don't know, like very, almost like arcadish and sort of, not wooden, but it's very sort of like snappy and almost like not very human-like. It's weird. Like the way that like the characters run and stuff is a little bit odd still. It doesn't have like this almost natural flow to it. I mean, it looks very realistic, but it still has a lot of elements from those two games.
Yeah, I mean, like I was watching. I watched the trailer before we recorded, and I don't know what Norman Reedus' character's name is, but you see him running around, and like the crouch run reminds me very much so of Metal Gear.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like, even just not even playing those two games, if you just watch a couple videos of gameplay of even MGS5, it's so reminiscent of, like, the controls and just the way that he kind of crouch runs and crouch walks, like, and that's fine, but I don't know, it's just, like, there's almost a part of me that wants him to just get away from that a little bit more and create something that's 110% different, and that's crazy because I'm a massive Metal Gear fan.
Yeah, but I mean,
still,
like, it's, I understand it. Like,
there's just, I don't know, like when I watched it, I was very impressed. Like I said, it looks amazing. It looks very interesting. But there's just a couple parts that it didn't make me cringe, but it just made me think, oh, come on, man. Like, you're still, I don't know. It's almost like he's using an engine that is based off of some of those older engines, but it's just a little bit better. And that's fine, but at the same time, it's kind of like not, I don't know. I think that my thoughts on it are, I don't know, kind of the same. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a day one purchase. Like that's not a doubt in my mind, but I don't know. Maybe I just need to see even more, which is maybe asking too much.
So let me ask you this then. Why is this going to be a day one purchase with you? Because it sounds like you're really on the fence, and I don't know. Like if I were on the fence with that game that much, I wouldn't even consider it a day one. I would wait at least a couple weeks.
Well, here's why it's day one. I'm on the fence in terms of some of the mechanics, I suppose, but in terms of the story, I'm 100% on board. Like what I read on that little excerpt will definitely potentially change your mind.
Sell me.
I will. Well, fuck it. I'm just going to read it. It's not that long. People have built walls and become accustomed to living in isolation. Death Stranding is a completely new type of action game where the player's goal is to reconnect isolated cities and a fragmented society. All elements, including the story and gameplay, are bound together by the theme of strand, or connection. As Sam Porter Bridges, You will attempt to bridge these divisions, and in doing so, create new bonds or strands with other players around the globe. Through your experience playing the game, I hope you will come to understand the true importance of forging connections with others. Now, please enjoy the latest Death Stranding trailer, Hideo Kojima.
So is this like an open world kind of thing?
Yo, yeah.
Ugh.
It's going to be, I mean, as far as I know, it's completely open world, and I don't know, but I have a feeling based on that description and what we've seen that you may be connecting with actual other players that are doing something similar, or you are somehow connecting with in-game, like NPCs or whatever. I have no idea, and I think people are all wondering the same things at this very moment because it's still not explaining enough. Maybe that's a good thing, but Kojima is notorious for doing this kind of shit, always putting out stuff that doesn't reveal that much, and that's just how he rolls. But yeah, to answer your question, that is one of the main reasons why it's going to be day one, because I do like the premise. I think it's very interesting. It's very relative to real life. Excuse me. And then it's Kojima, so I got to support him, and I like all of the actors and voice actors that are in the game. And yeah, that's enough for me, because anything that he puts out is usually gold in my mind, except for I think it was Zone of the Enders. I wasn't a big fan of that.
Okay. I don't know what to think about this one, man.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, even the music was kind of like off in a way.
The whole thing just left me with more questions than answers. Like, why the hell is he running around with a baby, and why does he keep plugging the baby in? And is the baby talking to him? Because that's the implication that I had. Like, this baby is giving him superpowers to see into like another dimension or something. And what the fuck does that have to do with connecting multiple societies?
We don't know, but I have a feeling that this game could be a game that we're going to be talking about for a long time, which is a good thing. So,
well, it might not be a good thing. Like,
it might not be.
I'm watching this trailer, and to me, I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on? Can Kojima get over himself?
Yeah, he's definitely...
I have a complete opposite reaction from this, because I'm not a fan of Kojima stuff. I really enjoyed Metal Gear Solid 1, but in retrospect, that game is weird as shit. And looking at the other Metal Gears, I have never been able to get into a Metal Gear after that.
Yeah, Metal Gear 1, I think, holds a special place in a lot of gamers' hearts, because it's very accessible, and it had a great... I mean, I could go off about that game for a while, but it's a lot more accessible than the other titles, 100% for sure. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we'll have to do like a Metal Gear episode, but...
Sure.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's weird. Like, I'm excited for it. I need more time. And I think that's where a lot of people are at. But only when I say a lot of people, I think it's only Kojima fans and only Metal Gear fans are going to be, most excited about this.
Yeah. I'm all for games as art. Like, I support that 100%, but I think at some point you just need to figure out whether or not something's for you. And right now, and this sucks, because I love Norman Reedus. I think he's a tremendous actor. And I'm really excited about him being involved in a video game at this level, because I think he's going to knock it out of the park. But I am really concerned that this is going to be like, I have a feeling like this story is going to be so far up Kojima's ass, like it's not going to know what's going on.
Well, that's the thing. He does have a giant ego, as far as I know, and I think that's pretty clear that, based on the way he just kind of conducts himself, like he's very, almost like godlike, like he treats himself as sort of like this gaming god, and in a lot of ways he is. But at the same time, sometimes I'm humble enough to say, all right, dude, like, yes, you're a genius, but at the same time, you only kind of focused on really one kind of game, and it was just really Metal Gear. I mean, that's really what he's known for. He's known for a couple other things, but it's just one series, and even though it's massively successful, sometimes I want to like have a conversation with him and be like, all right, man, like, don't be wrong, I fucking love what you've done, but can we please just see something different? And like, thank fucking God we're seeing something different finally. Like, it's almost like too late. Like, we have it and it's coming, but I think there's a part of me that's, like I said, humble enough to say, all right, man, it's about fucking time we saw something different.
Yeah.
And you still are latching on to some Metal Gear like mechanics here, and it's just like, I don't know. Show us something completely fresh.
Yeah.
From the ground fucking up, including mechanics. I mean, the rest of it is completely new. There's no other game that I can possibly think of that looks like this or has the story that's based on what he said. But
yeah,
I want to see something that looks almost not really like a Kojima game.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that for now.
Might have to wait for the next one for that.
Yeah, 10 years from now.
Yeah. All right, folks, let's wrap it up there. I just had a brain fart. I don't know.
Hey, I don't think there's anything else to say. I mean, usually you ask me if there's anything else, and
yeah,
I don't know if there is.
Will, is there anything else that you would like to say?
No. Play Skyrim. You have you can play it on your goddamn. You could probably play it on a roll of toilet paper at this point.
I'm gonna say play Sigil because that's what I want to play. Oh man, I gotta figure out if I want to spend the $6.66 on the Buckethead version. I kind of do,
and I
feel like that's fair. I feel like that's a fair price.
Yeah. You have to create it. You have to make it fair, but yeah, I'm going to keep everybody posted on Doom 2016. I'll let everybody know if I picked it up. And other than that, I'm probably going to play some Skyrim later, maybe some Sekiro, and that's going to be my Sunday.
If you end up picking up 2016, let me know, and I would love to revisit that game on the Xbox One X. And if I can figure out, my schedule, then I will play it with you.
How?
Not co-op. I mean, like.
Oh, just like we'll both kind of play it at the same sort of time.
Yeah, like we did with Journey and all that.
Yeah, like I'll call you up at 7, and I'll ask you if you've loaded it up, and we'll do like a speakerphone like play session.
Yeah, man. Did you get the key yet? I'm waiting for you to get the key.
Yeah,
get the goddamn key. Come on, Will. Folks, thank you so much for hitting the download button on this episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to send us your questions, comments through our Discord channel, or you can always drop us an email, wdgrpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at WDGRPodcast. And Will, of course, if somebody would like to follow you, how can they find you?
Will_Gear.
You can find me at ScienceStorm. Thank you, everybody, for making May a record month for us and downloads and support of the show. We really appreciate it, and we hope to continue bringing you awesomeness for months to come.
We have big plans, folks, so stay tuned.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya.